Good morning, good afternoon, from wherever that you're joining us from today. I'm really looking forward to this session. For me, it's the afternoon here in the UK, but I know a lot of you are joining us from an American client base as well. So I appreciate everyone taking 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes out of their diary to join us for this session. Honestly, I'm super excited to be running this one today. And really looking forward to sharing a number of the insights and a number of kind of fresh releases with a lot of people as well. Um, I just want to start by saying I'm joining you live here from a WeWork in London. If you've ever worked in a WeWork before, you'll understand what I mean by the little booths that are available. So I've managed to grab one of those. I must say I'm not convinced that there's a lot of oxygen in these, so hopefully we can get through the next 30 to 45 minutes without me passing out. And if at any point I need to, I'm sure I can open the door as well. For those of you who have not joined the webinar that I've been involved in before, my name's Dougie Loan. I am the CRO at SourceWhale. So I'm really lucky I get to lead our sales, our customer success, and our marketing teams on a day-to-day basis. I'm also terribly Scottish for my sins as well. So if I'm not making sense at any point or I'm speaking too fast, which I have a tendency to do, I won't be offended if you ask me to slow down or repeat myself. The session today will take around 30 minutes, maybe up to 45 minutes. But the intention of it really is to deliver some gold to you in the form of insights, data, and some really actionable approaches that you can start to implement as part of your business development approach throughout the rest of this year, and who knows, maybe even into next year as well. Let's see what the data tells us in 3 to 6 months' time. If you do have any questions at any point, you can use the chat bar or the chat kind of window here on the right-hand side. I will do my best to answer any questions as and when they come in. So yeah, please feel free to hop in there at any point. My intention is really to keep this one nice and casual, nice and conversational with you all. So yeah, like I said, feel free to drop a note in there if there's anything that comes up or springs to mind. But I think that's us. I think we should probably get started and getting going. Bill, you're asking if you should be hearing voices. You should. So if you can't, then I'm hoping my microphone's okay and it's maybe just the volume on your desktop. But if anyone else can't hear me, then please by all means let me know. I'm more than happy to maybe sort things out from a headphone perspective as well. So let's get started then. Let me share my screen, which has become something of a common phrase, I think, over the last couple of years since the pandemic and whatnot. Let me see if I can bring this up. And if I share my screen now, hopefully all of you guys can see a slide deck which has a slightly younger version of my face on it. Before we get started, if somebody could just let me know in the comments that you're able to see that, that would be great. And then we can get cracking on. Or if you can't see it for any reason, please just let me know. So like I said, this webinar is Graham. Thank you very much. All good. Appreciate it. So really want to talk you through this webinar today, and in terms of making sure that we're delivering as much value to you. It actually forms the part of something that I'm really excited to share with our customer base, which is something that we call lifetime learning. I've been working really closely with our customer success department over the last 2 to 3 months, and we've really been focused in on ensuring that, listen, it's easy to buy technology in the recruitment space and you have access to it for a number of years, and really the only training or insights you get are when you first come on board. We're really determined to make sure that we're working with our SourceWhale customer base on a continuous basis throughout the lifetime that you're with us, to ensure that we're always delivering the most up-to-date, the most relevant, and the most useful information to you. That's why we're launching our lifetime learning program, and it's based around these 4 key pillars. The first is monthly outreach coaching. So some of you already benefit from this already, but if it's not something you take advantage of, you do have the ability to engage with your customer success manager, either on an individual basis or on an organizational basis, for some support around your specific outreach approach, your business development approach. We can provide you with hints, tips, and pointers on how you might be able to change that to generate more optimum results. But also, we're keen to include new things as well, just like this, which are quarterly industry insight webinars. This will be the first one that we're running today, and hopefully the first of many to come. As always, you'll have access to our on-demand content, which things like articles, videos, etc., which are already available inside the SourceWhale platform or inside our help center. But the one I'm really excited about is the SourceWhale Academy. So we're going to be launching our SourceWhale Academy towards the end of this year, and it's going to give you the ability to learn not just from us, but also some of the best minds within the industry around some of the best business development or headhunting approaches that you can take on a day-to-day basis and ensure that you're consistently leveling up your game, not just in terms of your usage of SourceWhale, but in terms of your general business development approach as well. So keep your eyes peeled for some more information on that over the coming weeks and months. So let's get into the agenda for today then. So we spoke about there being 4 key ingredients or 4 key steps based upon the data analysis that we've done of the users of our platform over the last 6 months. So we took a holistic view and we analysed hundreds and hundreds of data points across the customer base. And what we're delivering to you today are some of the 4 key steps that really stood out to us in terms of what was delivering the best possible results for the highest performers within the customer base. So step 1 is ICP, step 2 is multi-threading, step 3 is MMQQ, which I'm really excited to discuss with you, and then the final is conversion points as well. So let's get straight into ICP and talk a little bit more about that and what it means, and in particular actually defining your ICP. So ICP is your ideal client persona. This is the type of individual or the type of organization that we really want to be working with. Essentially what we saw when we looked at the data was that the general approach and the structure of your business development campaign has a massive impact on the outcomes that you achieve. But actually something that we saw the most successful users doing was having a really clear approach at what they were actually targeting in the first place. And what we found when we analysed that data is that some of the good or best results start from actually who we're targeting at that top of funnel. Now, it might seem obvious, right? But it would amaze you actually how easy, and I'm guilty of this as well, having been a recruiter for a number of years, how easy it is to fall into that trap of not regularly reviewing and analysing the type of organisations that we're trying to reach out to. So when we're looking at defining ICP, what do we mean by that? Well, it means that some of the recruiters that are achieving the best results right now from a business development standpoint are really making sure that they're super tight on the type of organizations that they're trying to target. Things like they're monitoring the market in particular that they're going after, the location, the stage of business, and the level of role. If, for example, if I was doing sales recruitment right now, I wouldn't say, it'd be easy for me to say I'm a sales recruiter working in London. But actually, for those who are very tight around their ICP and their ideal client persona, I might say something more along the lines of, I'm a sales recruiter that specialises in fintech organisations based in London, predominantly in the centre of London. We typically work with organisations that are at Series A to Series B, and the types of roles that we commonly recruit for are account executives within that business. Having that really niched approach means that not only is the business development cadence much more powerful and much more meaningful and much more purposeful, but it's typically leading to better results as well, because those individuals are better equipped to speak to the personas and the individuals within those organizations and the pain points and the problems that they might have as part of that. So defining an ICP and looking at it is one thing, but how do we actually go through and what approach can we take to understand what that niche might be based upon data? So I think the thing that's most important to me, and a saying that I love in this industry, is that success leaves clues. And it's been something that I've always believed in over the 10 years that I've worked in and around the recruitment industry. And it's something that we can really use to make sure that we're hammering home on that ICP element at the top of the funnel. Now, there's a number of different things that we look at here, but again, when I spoke to a couple of the agencies that were doing this really well, they were able to share with us that the approach that they commonly take to it is that they look at the number of roles or the roles that they've recruited for or had live at any point over the last 6 or 12 months. They don't typically look beyond 12 months, and we'll talk as to why about that in a second. But they look at the number of live roles that they've had over the last 12 months, and they typically encourage their consultants to do this on a desk-by-desk basis as well. And they look at their time to fill on those positions. So of all of the roles that we've had over the last 12 months, of the ones that we placed, what was our fill rate? And then what was our time to fill on those positions? How long did it typically take us to do that? When they've been able to identify those roles that they have a strong placement rate on and a strong time to fill on, they then narrowed that down by looking at things such as location, size, and type of role. That type of information that we were looking at on the last page. And really, what that's done is it allowed them to analyse what those wins have in common. So, in terms of those roles where they've been very successful, they've had high win rates, they've had fast time to fill, what common trends and traits are they seeing within the data at that point? But they've been able to look at the opposite side of it as well, because actually sometimes it's just as important to know what business that you don't want to win as it is to understand what business you do want to win. And they've mentioned to us that that has been a bit of a game changer for them, being able to say, look, we know that right now times are tough and it can be tempting to take on jobs, but they're big believers that actually winning no business is better than winning bad business right now, because you end up draining yourself working on positions which you ultimately don't go on to fill or to generate revenue from. We all know in the recruitment industry that we don't typically make money unless we make a successful placement on most occasions, unless we're selling retainers, etc. Therefore, we need to make sure that we're delivering a high level of service niche towards those that we have the highest possible chance of filling. And I think going back to what we said there about as to why we don't look at that longer than 12 months is because it's easy to fall into the trap of, saying, well, our ICP at one point was this, we ran this exercise and this was our ICP. But things change over time. Markets change, people change. You'll pick up the odd role that's maybe slightly outside it. And over time, that kind of, what was once a very tight ICP and approach can become loose and loose. And you start to pick up things, but that's not always a bad thing. That can sometimes open up opportunities inside markets or areas that weren't previously something you were targeting, but became more apparent as time went on. So again, we often encourage, and from the feedback we have, to not just look at this once and then lock it away in your cupboard or let's say your filing cabinet, but not many people have filing cabinets in their home offices, I don't think, nowadays. But you definitely don't want to lock that away and leave it. It's got to be something you go back and analyze and make sure that you're regularly reviewing. So when we have that information, what do we do with it, right? So we've got that information together, we've got our ICP, where do we go next with it? The key to this is about taking a tiered approach. Tiering your accounts is important, particularly when it comes to the next part we're going to discuss here, which is step 2, which is multi-threading. So this will make much more sense as we go into the multi-threading element. But again, we commonly see recruiters who are generating the best results on the platform looking at a tiered approach on their accounts. So tier 1 is an easy one, which is which accounts or which types of roles and companies that I have a high win rate with and a high fill rate. So I commonly win these types of roles and I commonly fill them and I commonly do that in a fast fashion. And then which, for tier 2, do I have a high either win rate or fill rate on and either a medium win rate or fill rate. So these are roles where maybe I win them often. It takes me a little longer to fill them, or I don't fill them as much as I do others, but it's certainly at average or above average, or vice versa on the flip side. And then the final is what we would call tier 3, which is medium or average. So, again, if I'm winning these opportunities, at or above average and filling them at or above average, they make up that kind of final tier for me on a business development approach perspective. Now, when we're looking at these tiers and we're looking at how we run them, one of the key elements that we see as part of that is actually being able to stand back and say, well, often asked, what happens if my win rate or my fill rate is low, or it's not as high as I'd want it to be at any given point? Well, the honest answer is, most people we encourage to look at that and say, well, why is that poor, and what can we do to change it? So if it's not looking the way that we want it to be, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't target it at all, but we should probably start to ask ourselves what we can do to change that. Either give us a better opportunity or chance of winning these positions in the first place, or when we win these positions, what could we be changing about our approach to give us a better opportunity at filling them? And if we're unable to do that for whatever reason, then we simply just need to question why we want to play in that space to begin with. The caveat to that is obviously if we're reaching out into new markets, so we're starting new divisions, we're naturally going to have lower than average win and fill rates for a period of time. So there is obviously a little bit of nuance to the data and ensuring that we're taking a common sense approach to it as we're looking at it. So that's things from an ICP perspective. Essentially, the key thing to take away from this, if there was a kind of snippet to take away from it, is essentially using our bottom of funnel data. So the point where we actually convert the work that we do to revenue, that bottom of funnel data, to inform the top of funnel. And if we're regularly doing that, then we're going to ensure that we're having that kind of consistent approach coming through of the right types of opportunities as part of our business development approach. But now that we know about our tiers, and we have tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, we need to start looking at how we engage with these organizations as well. And that's where multi-threading comes in as well. I'll take a drink of my water there. So from a multi-threading perspective, this may be something you're doing already, it may not. And I'll share some data on that in a second. But there's commonly two approaches to multi-threading. The first is what we call one-to-multiple. And this is where, as a recruiter, you're reaching out to different contacts within a target account. So that would be the hiring manager, it might be the exec team, and it might be the talent contact or talent acquisition member within the organization. The second approach to multi-threading is what we call multiple to multiple, or team selling effectively. And on team selling, we're not just doing this ourselves, but as a recruiter, I might be approaching the hiring manager. I might engage with one of my colleagues on this target account and ask them to approach the talent acquisition team. And alternatively, I may then have my manager or my director involved, reaching out to the executive team or the director team within that target account. Really taking that cohesive team-led approach to ensuring that we're engaging in the right ways at the right levels within the organisation. Now, we spoke before about tiering our accounts, and tier 1 is definitely those accounts where we see team selling being the most effective. So we have high win rates, we have high fill rates. How do we make sure that as an organisation we're seeing this not just as an individual, but as a company and a key target account that we can go after? Now, the benefits of multi-threading are pretty self-explanatory. We've got more chance of a successful connection when we multi-thread. It's a really good way to become known within the organisation if we take the right type of approach, which again we'll cover off. But actually, on the flip side as well, it's a really great way to gain information that we will then need to use in the future to successfully represent that target account when we're hiring and we're positions for it. So, having these different points of views and these different connections up and down the organisation are really going to help us build that fuller picture of what it's really like as an organisation and in a company to work with and to make placements in as well. So we know obviously it pays to engage up and down the organisation. We've spoken about the two different types of multi-threading that you can do. You can have one to multiple, or you can have multiple to multiple, which is again more commonly referred to as team selling. So what's the most common of those then when we looked at the data? Well, the answer is actually it's neither of them. What we're seeing at the moment is that although multi-threading is leading to some of the best results within our customer base, only 1 in 5 recruiters, so just under 20%, are actually engaging in multi-threading on a regular basis as part of their business development approach. Actually, commonly, most of the outreach is getting done to one point of contact within that company. So on over 80% of the occasions, it's one-to-one. It's a recruiter to a hiring manager or a recruiter to a kind of TA team or talent contact. Which really shows that whilst this is a really high converting approach, it's going to be a game changer for you if it's an approach that you can take, which others in your industry are not doing. So, using and leveraging SourceWhale as the ability to do that and remind you each point, bearing in mind as you use SourceWhale, you do have the ability to set tasks and messages for different people throughout your organization as part of your business development approach. It's something we do here at SourceWhale internally as well. I'll regularly log on a day-to-day basis and have a task set for me from one of our SDRs to reach out to a certain individual within a target account that we've identified as like a tier 1 account within our company as well. So bear in mind you can use SourceWhale to look at that. Elaine's asking in the comment section here, what messaging works best at each level? Elaine, it's a really, really good question. A really worthwhile exercise on this, and we'll come on to messaging right now actually, a really worthwhile exercise on this is to sit down and map out what those 3 points of contact are. I mean, it could be 3 points of contact, it could be 5, it could be 2. It really depends on the industry and the market in which you operate in. But really start to map out what the impact of filling that position has to each of those 3 individuals within the team. For example, you could have the hiring manager, the impact of delayed projects, the impact of not being able to meet their individual targets. They feel personal pain, right? Not maybe making quotas or bonuses, etc. For being able to complete that project. I'm continuing with the sales recruitment example here. The talent acquisition team may be under pressure to hit certain targets and certain quotas as part of that as well. They may be finding it hard. There is still a talent shortage out there, right? They might be finding it hard to find the right quality of individuals, and they're under pressure as a result. And then within the executive team, they're maybe more focused on the kind of future goals of the organization. So, looking at, by not making these hires now, what impact that has 12 to 18 months down the line. So it's really about gearing up that messaging to speak to the pains and problems that you solve for each of those different personas. But obviously, every industry is very different. Every persona is very different. And quite frankly, you guys will know as recruiters and specialists in your space, the problems that your personas or target personas have better than I will. So would hate to give you something that would be misleading there, but hopefully that background might help for you on that one as well. And on the note of messaging as well, Elaine, and for everyone else, there's two kind of key mistakes that we often encourage people to avoid. Now, these might seem quite obvious, but honestly, it is easy to fall into that trap. And the first one is to send the same message to everyone on different days. So going back to Elaine's point there and Elaine's question around what messaging works best, again, like I said, we need to make sure that we're gearing up towards those personas that we're trying to target and those in which we're trying to engage with, to make sure that we're not just simply sending the exact same message to different people a couple of days apart. And the problem with that as well is it comes across as really automated, it comes across as really spammy. You're not really showing the individual you're trying to reach out to that you know them in any way. They could simply just be part of a mass mail campaign or mass market campaign, which obviously we know does not generate the best results. And then the other one is copying everyone into the same message. I've seen this happen a few times where we're reaching out to one point of contact, they copy in another couple, and we try to speak to them all at the same time. Again, the messaging gets blurred a little bit, and it is not often the most effective way to reach out. So multi-threading is powerful, but avoid those two mistakes and you'll have a much better chance of success. So we've spoken about using the bottom of the funnel to inform the work that we do at the top of the funnel. And when we've got that top of funnel ICP defined, we're talking about how we can multi-thread, particularly into those tier 1 accounts. But what do we actually do from a business development structure perspective then when it comes to going after them? Well, that's where MMQQ comes in. So if we look at MMQQ and what it means, MMQQ stands for multi-touch, multi-channel, quality, and quantity. And we believe, and we have the data to show it, that those are the 4 key influencing factors as to whether or not your business development campaign has a successful outcome. If you can control a multi-touch, multi-channel approach with a key focus on delivering data-backed quality and quantity, you're going to have a marginal gain and an unfair advantage on those who are simply not focused across those 4 key areas. And we're going to dig into them a little bit just now over the next 5 minutes. So what we did was we looked at over the last 6 months, over 6 million pieces of outreach that have gone out through the platform. This is the start of this year, and over 56,000 meetings that have been booked in the last 6 months as well. And the results that we're about to share with you come from that great analysis that has been done by a number of people on our team, but primarily and predominantly a great guy on our team called Alex Ecott. Ilke's asked me to, excellent, Brett's covered my back on that one. Thank you, Brett. That's my Scottish accent not doing me any favours there, so thanks for jumping in. So the first part then is multi-touch. So we looked at the data and we wanted to understand what is the optimum number of times to reach out to someone to generate the highest possible conversion. Now, everyone has seen numbers banded around before, and we've looked at different elements of different channels, etc. And we all will probably have a different way in which we go to market at this moment in time, and we'll be aware of it. Hopefully, if you're using SourceWhale already, you'll be taking a multi-touch approach as standard. But the most amazing thing that came out of this is that the data shows that actually when you reach out on 3 steps, your average conversion rate from outreach to meeting, so on a 3-step campaign, is 3.7%. Increasing that to 7 steps drastically improves that conversion rate to 14%. But where the real marginal gain is and the optimum number was 8 steps. An 8-step campaign typically had a conversion rate of around 21% from outreach to meeting ratio, which is an absolutely phenomenal return, and where we're seeing the highest performing users of our platform sitting when it comes to making sure that they have those touch points throughout the process. Bill's asked, how do you define pieces, and is it per target lead or per actual email step for all? It's a great question, Bill. So a piece of outreach could be anything from a LinkedIn message to a phone call to SMS, etc., etc., etc. So think of a piece of outreach really being an action of outreach, regardless of which way in which it has been executed, whether that's email or whatever it might be as you go through it. If we look towards the next part then from a multi-channel perspective, the multi-channel being the second key element to what it is that we're trying to deliver on a day-to-day basis. Again, channels are super important to, or the channels in which we're doing are really, really important to the impact that has on the work that we're doing. And again, it can be easy. Listen, I've been there before as well, where we fall into the trap of doing an approach or a channel that is the most effective to us from, or something that we're most comfortable with on a day-to-day basis. So we looked at this as well, and we saw that actually the average conversion rate when a campaign was using a one-channel approach was only 3.75%. This was across the entire customer base over the last 6 months. But when using 3 channels, that doubled to 7.9, or just over doubled to over just 7.94%. Now, we're not saying that everyone has to use 3 channels. We're just giving you the optimum approach for that. There is obviously a significant uplift when using 2 channels. And if you think about it, it is logical. It does make sense. We all know that when the market's tough and when the market's tight, sending out, a stream of 7 or 8 emails is not going to be as effective as it would be if we were littering in kind of LinkedIn messaging, phone calls, or general touch points and emails, etc. As part of that as well. So I'll pause there for a second because we've covered multi-touch and we've covered multi-channel. Mike's asked, was there diminishing returns after 8 steps? Yes, the data was slightly more mixed after 8 steps, Mike. Essentially, it's not common. What we're not seeing is that there's a large enough data set when we broke it down on like 9, 10, 11, 12, and so on and so forth for us to really gauge an accurate reflection of what the effectiveness of those steps might be. It wasn't so much that we would say that it would be a terrible idea to do it, but we just couldn't say that there was that linear approach like there had been growing from 3 to 7 and up to 8. Essentially, I don't have the data, and I'm in a confident enough way to be able to tell you that continuing past 8 steps is likely to generate a positive result for you. So we would say at this point in time, 8 steps is the optimum approach. Feel free to continue to A/B test. We know we have a number of customers that do try multiple, but it's likely that beyond 8, you're not likely to see the same results as you would on that 8-step approach. Bill's asking a little bit on the calculations for the conversion rates. I think the part here is the conversion rate of 6 million pieces of outreach to 56,000 meetings. Yet, bearing in mind, Bill, 6 million pieces of outreach is not 6 million different individuals that have been approached through the platform over that period of time. These are 6 million different touch points that have been conducted over that period of time. So anything from emails to phone calls to LinkedIn messages, etc. That is the number of touch points that have taken place, which have led to 56,000 meetings, over that same period of time. So it's not a straight conversion ratio. It's not as simple as dividing, 6 million or 56,000 by 6 million to pull that through. Mike Santoro, what about the cadence? How many days between each step is optimal? This is a really interesting one. So actually we looked at, and it depends on the type of steps. So we've not included it as part of this actually, but we are going to share this as part of a white paper that we're publishing towards the end of the month. The optimum time between steps is different if you're using a call step versus an email step. So we found that the optimum time for a phone step was actually within 24 hours of an email step. So phone steps that came within 24 hours of an email step led to better results than those that were 2, 3, 4, 5 days apart. But we would say that the maximum time between steps that you would want to leave for other types is 72 hours. 2 to 3 days is optimum, but if you're using a phone call, we would encourage you to make sure that happens within 24 hours of a kind of written piece of outreach as you go through it. But again, there'll be more detail on that in the white paper that we're publishing at the end of the month as we crunch through it as well. As Ara has said, the timescales matter, i.e. 8 steps over 2 weeks. Does that work better than 8 steps over 6 months? In fact, I think Matthew's also asked that question as well. 8 steps over a 3-week period were the ones that we were seeing having the most impact at that point as well. And again, so 21 to 22 days of 8 steps in terms of an approach. But again, bear in mind, these are for these tier 1 accounts. And we're not saying that taking that approach and then leaving it and completely never touching that account again is the right thing to do. We're just seeing a concerted effort over that 21 to 22 day period using 3 channels, team selling, and with those 8 steps is yielding the best possible results at that first pass. But we do see people going in for a second, third, fourth pass, but leaving a break between each one. There is the ability as well, obviously on SourceWhale, to use what we would call like a drip campaign, whereby you can set steps up over a much longer period of time. But those are typically when we're trying to keep existing accounts warm or people that we've spoken to. From a pure new business play, 8 steps over a 21 or 22 day period would yield the best results or optimum results from what we've seen over the last 6 months. So moving on from multi-touch and multi-channel, I just wanted to share this little piece with you as well, which really starts to highlight the power of it. This is one of our customers, Rupert. And Rupert was able to generate over £1.5 million in revenue in the last 12 months, really from meetings that they were booking from Timberseed through SourceWhale, which came from channels and touch points that they weren't simply using before. And I just think that's a really nice way to highlight that, we can get bogged down in the detail of touch points and channels and things, and it can often feel like we're concentrating on a lot of the minute detail. But really, there is significant amounts of revenue that can be generated in the back of that as well. So it is worth bearing in mind that there is a high level of importance to the multi-touch and multi-channel approach as part of the MMQQ framework. And when it comes to quality, you'll know if you've seen any of our recent product releases, and I think we've probably got about 10 minutes left here now in this presentation, is the release of what we've called Content Coach and Insights. 2 pieces on this as well. The first one is Content Coach. I'll go into that in a little more detail in a second, but on Content Coach, we analysed over 21.8 million pieces of outreach that went out through the platform over the last couple of years. We were able to use that information to create an algorithm which generated a scoring metric, which was really highlighting the behaviours of content which yielded the best possible results. So it's really hard when you're writing your content, particularly for email steps or LinkedIn steps or whatever it might be, to understand what works best. If you are using Content Coach and you do have a score of 85 or above, you are statistically more likely to convert to a meeting than those that don't have that in place in the first place. That has a score less than that. So I would highly encourage you to make use of Content Coach. The other key piece of information that came out is you'll know as a SourceWhale user that on our Chrome extension, when you're adding someone to a campaign, we give you the ability to personalize on the fly. And personalization on the fly is a really key element, again, to generating results. So we noticed that when there is a layer of personalization, a sentence of personalization inserted on the fly using the Chrome extension, the engagement in terms of things like response rates, interest rates, and meeting rates doubles in comparison to emails which simply have bog standard text in it, which is going out to everyone on a day-to-day basis. Insights can obviously help you personalize that information, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. So to save me doing a live demo of any software during this presentation, 20-second overview for Content Coach for those of you who have not currently used it. On Content Coach, the easiest way to access Content Coach is when you're on a written step within your campaign. So whether that's an email, LinkedIn, or SMS if you're in the US or Canada, you'll see this small circle on the bottom left-hand side of the content creation box. And on that small circle, you see a number within it. If you press that, the Content Coach appears on the right-hand side, and we'll start to give you those insights in terms of what's working and what's not working for the messaging that you've created here. You can start to see, what's great about your content, which is always nice. I always like to get a little bit of praise. But if you hover over anything here that needs work, we'll highlight the particular parts of that message that we would encourage you to consider changing as well. So Content Coach, again, should be pretty self-explanatory and give you everything you need. But if you do want any further support on that, please feel free to reach out to myself or our customer success team. We'll make sure that you're optimizing that content in the best possible way. One of the conversations that we often have with people around Content Coach is, I've been doing this for a long time and I'm quite comfortable with what works. And listen, that's totally fine. Like, if you've got a system that works, then stick with it. But Simon, who's another of our customers, was quite honest with us and said, look, he'd been doing recruiting for a long time, and he was just curious to see how his approach compared to the approaches that were yielding the best results. And when he got into it, he was able to make some tweaks, which actually generated an improvement in his results by over 400% compared to his original approach. He says at the end that you really can't teach an old dog new tricks. I think he's probably been a little bit unfair in himself there. He's not too much of an old dog, but you get the idea. Content coach is powerful, regardless of whether you're someone who's been in the industry for a long time or someone who's just new into it. Even if it's just a slight marginal gain, we all need those marginal gains to really up our game on a day-to-day basis as well. The next part is insights. Now, we did email everyone about this on Monday. You may have seen my LinkedIn post about it if we're connected on LinkedIn. If we're not connected on LinkedIn, please do connect with me. But insights is the ability and a part of the Chrome extension, which now gives you access to this column, which is really delivering new information that's available to you to really allow you to personalize your approach. We spoke about how personalization doubles the engagement you get in terms of responses and meeting rates. But it can often be quite time consuming to actually go away and gather that information in the first place. So with insights, you're now going to get information about the organization, its competitors, news stories, open roles, funding rounds, etc. So the hope here is that by giving you more information at your fingertips, you'll be able to personalize your communications more on the fly, and it will take you less time to do it as well. It is worth mentioning that it is still in beta mode, and we're building up our kind of network of knowledge over time as well. So we have an algorithm that is continuously learning and continuously looking out there for the latest information. So expect that to continue to improve and increase over time as we go through it. Jason's question is, does Content Coach data take into consideration the geography, and are there differences in content strategies based on geographies, i.e. US versus UK in the approach? It's a really, really interesting one, Jason. At the moment in time, we've looked at Content Coach at an aggregate level and assessed how that performance looks at things over both the UK and the US, and we've found the commonalities in there. There is obviously certain nuance to what works best in the UK versus what works best in the US. But what we've done with that nuance is we've not pushed that as either a negative or a positive to you. So we're basically taking Content Coach, and where we're finding the commonalities of what works well and what doesn't, that's what we're pushing out to you on Content Coach right now. There is plans in the work on the roadmap for our V2 of Content Coach to start to include some more of these, like you said, geographical nuance, and make sure that we're picking that up and delivering slightly different insights and pieces of information to you as well. So keep an eye out for that towards the end of the year when we make that update. But you can rest assured that the information you're seeing right now, whether you're reaching out to people in the UK or US, is data-backed and data-driven to lead to successful results. John's asked, does the SourceWhale Insights tool change based on what product you're using, Recruiter versus SalesNav versus LinkedIn Standard? It doesn't, John. No. So right now, so we're not, engaging or interacting or scraping any information, if you like, from LinkedIn. We're fully compliant from that perspective. We're not running anything like that. So the information is actually based upon some custom work that we're doing in the background, and not from what you're seeing, on that LinkedIn profile. So whether it's Recruiter, SalesNav, or LinkedIn Standard would have an impact for you. And then the final piece is quantity. I'm conscious we're coming up on time here. We've got 3 or 4 minutes left. And quantity was a really interesting one for me because I wanted to understand, when we have a motion in place, which is, ICP driven, which is multi-threaded, which takes time to look at the engagement of having a multi-touch and multi-channel approach and has a data-backed quality element to it. What impact does quantity have to the results? Now, some people were delivering great results below this. Some people were delivering phenomenal results above this as well. But what we found was the quantity advice that we're giving you here was really those who had the most consistent approach to meetings booked as part of their campaigns. So these were people who were regularly booking campaigns and weren't seeing drastic spikes and drastic drops in the number of meetings that they were booked, that they were booking on a week-to-week or month-to-month basis. And for those individuals, they were adding between 25 and 50 new contacts per week. But the key element to that was actually that they were dropping in between 5 and 10 each day. So again, adding 5 to 10 people to the top of the funnel, to the top of that campaign, meant that we were having a kind of consistent outcome and consistent output when it came to meetings booked. on a day-to-day, month-to-month, and quarter-to-quarter basis as well. So again, you can define what's right for your company. With a multi-touch, multi-channel approach and one that's steeped in quality. You might want to, you might find that they are rookie numbers and you want to bump them up a little, but it's definitely worth considering. Elkie's asked, is the 25 to 50 new contacts stage one a company or individual? That's based on individuals rather than organizations targeted, Elkie. So again, if we're taking a multi-thread approach and we're looking at 2 to 3 people, they would count as 2 to 3 as part of that 25 to 50 rather than just one as a key target account. And then the final thing I want to share with you, just to part on, is conversion points. This for me has been an eye-opener. We all know the power of the phone, but throughout the whole of 2023, I released some data on this in April based on what we'd seen so far in the year. But now that we have the entire 6 months of information, the phone is still by far the key conversion point in today's market of meetings. I want to be really clear on what this information means. We are not saying that a phone-only campaign generates the best results, and in fact, actually, a phone-only campaign generates some of the worst results that we've seen in the client base. But what we're saying here is that of the meetings which have been booked through the platform, the moment at which that meeting is booked most commonly comes from a phone conversation. So for those of you who don't include phone calls as part of your business development approach right now, or maybe have in the past but haven't had much of a focus on it, I highly encourage you to consider that, because there is a significant amount, there are tens of thousands of meetings through our platform being converted at the point of a phone conversation. Email and LinkedIn are obviously still strong channels as part of that as well. But something that's also worth bearing in mind is actually that we saw other events, things like events and referrals, playing a key part in some of that conversion as well, and certain touch points, invites to events, invites to webinars, or asking for referrals, was still generating a decent enough volume of opportunities as part of that approach. And I think that's us. If you're still here, you have managed to follow my incredibly Scottish accent for most of this time. So I'm going to leave you with a quick summary, which is that the key takeaways from this is that we want to make sure that we're defining the ICP, bottom of funnel to define the top. Multi-threading is important. 8 steps is the optimum when we're deploying 3 channels. And we want to make sure that we're engaging content coach and insights to drive quality as part of that approach on a day-to-day basis. And then the final thing is really making sure that we're making that a daily habit. Adding between 5 to 10 new contacts per day is going to make sure that we have consistency in our approach, and we're not going to experience any lumpiness in terms of the outcomes that we see on a day-to-day basis as well. I wanted to also make sure that you're reminded of the fantastic and amazing customer success team that we have in place here at SourceWhale. These fantastic individuals are always on hand to make sure that we're supporting you. So if you don't know who your customer success manager is, I'll be disappointed. But if you don't know, then reach out to me and I'll make sure I introduce you to them. And if you do know, please do reach out to them. They're more than happy to hear from you. They're really focused on making sure that we're always delivering results to you as well. And that's it. So if you want to do more, if you want to take what you've learned today and go away and apply that in your organization on your own, then please do. I'd highly encourage you to do that. Or if you want to take more information from this and engage with our customer success team, then do please feel free to reach out to me. Obviously, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, or alternatively, you can drop me an email. I think Bill's asked what my email is. So Bill, I'm just going to take that in the comments section for you just now. There we go. Yeah, feel free to drop me across an email. More than happy to go through things. I know there was a couple of questions we didn't manage to cover, so I apologise for that. If you do want to discuss anything in more detail, give me a shout. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and I hope everyone has a phenomenal and fantastic H2. I'm really excited to get back together for our next quarterly insights update, where hopefully we can keep an eye on what's happening in the market and share a couple more game changers with you to make sure that we're moving things forward as an industry. Have a good one, guys. Thanks again. Cheers.